Hey, hi everybody, welcome. This is the Comedic Cartoonist Podcast with your host Marcus Gregory. As always, the Comedic Cartoonist Podcast is meant for mature audiences, so if you're not mature, please leave. Alright, before we get into everything, I needed to address a few things real quick. First off, if you hear noises behind me, that's because it's raining outside, and I'm next to a window. So, sorry. Maybe it's a little nostalgia in a way. Or maybe it's just really annoying. Either way, it's completely on you. Use it for meditative purposes. Anyway, first thing I needed to do was last week's episode, I did not address the music. I put it in the comments, but I didn't actually address it. And so I did want to state that the music last week was provided by the band A Tragedy at Hand. They're a real cool metal band, and they recently opened for like Slipknot and Korn at the Knotfest, and they're doing another tour right now. They're going to be the next big metal band, so just, you can get in and start listening to their music right now, and you can be like, yeah, I knew them before they were big, man, and go like that. So definitely please take a look into it. But other than that, and the music for tonight, sorry, jeez, terrible. The music tonight was provided by Aaron Hyman, talented musician. The song is called Steer Together. I wrote the song, and Aaron wrote the music. I did the lyrics, he did the music. And so, I guess that makes me a lyricist, as Steven Tyler would put it. What happened to songwriter? Songwriter is a fine title. I don't understand why people are weirded by this, but I heard Steven Tyler in an interview say that he's a lyricist, and I'm like, no, you're a songwriter, dude. I don't know what it is with this new fancy term that you got. I don't know. I mean, did your daughter tell you that? Did she find it on Facebook or some crap? I don't know. But I was like, songwriter. Anyway, it's a great track. I'm actually going to play both tracks. I'm going to play 7 Years from a Tragedy at Hand, and I'm going to play Steer Together by Aaron Hyman after the show at the end. So you guys have a little bit of music to kind of sail away after the show. But let's go ahead and let's get into the news. Okay, recently Topher Grace, who's promoting his current film, I'm not going to mention it because it's not important. He recently made a comment about the movie Spider-Man 3, which he was in, if you recall. And he said that he realizes that not everyone was happy with it, but, the movie did make a lot of money, and there's something to be said about that, and blah, blah, blah. Look, Topher, the reason that no one was happy with Spider-Man 3 was because you were in it, okay? No offense to you, my friend, but the thing is that the character of Eddie Brock is not some skinny little pub squeak. He's not you, man. Okay, if anyone out there knows anything about the comic books of Spider-Man, they know that the villain Venom, who Topher Grace played, he played the character Eddie Brock, who is Venom, the black suit Spider-Man with the evil smile and teeth, which they honestly, in my opinion, did a crappy job in Spider-Man 3 of doing, because they just added too many villains, and it was just insane. But anyway, back to Topher Grace. He, the thing is that the character of Eddie Brock, he's built like a brick wall. I mean, he's a bodybuilder, he's got a crew cut, he looks like someone you wouldn't want to mess with. Jeez. But so that was one thing that I noticed recently with good old Topher Grace. I wrote a script once called Spider-Man 4, and in the opening scene, Peter Parker wakes up and everything that happened in Spider-Man 3 was a bad dream. But yeah, now we're supposed to be seeing Spider-Man, hopefully in the next Captain America movie. Hopefully Marvel's getting him back. We'll see what happens. Constantine, you remember that show. It got canceled. You might remember the film starring Keanu Reeves, but now they've got the television show out. It ran for about 13 episodes and then it was canceled, but the character is going to be showing up on the hit show Arrow, which is on CW, so definitely take a look into that. If you guys, there's a lot of Hellblazer fans out there. I'm sorry, that was terrible. Hellblazer fans out there that are really trying to keep the show alive and trying to keep more interest going, so God bless them. Fox News recently, a couple of their anchors criticized the new Star Wars movie, saying that it was, overrated. You know what I think's overrated? Fox News. Okay, and continuing on in our final little bit of piece of news tonight, The Walking Dead. The ratings continue to soar. 13.3 million viewers in last Sunday's episode, which was up from the week before. So the show just keeps on going and going, and they finally killed Glenn. Spoiler alert, by the way. Alright, okay, so that is the news for right now. Let me go, now we'd like to do a little part of the show where I talk about me. In this first little bit, I do want to say I listened to my first podcast, and I want to say I'm sorry I hit the mic and the table so much. I'm going to try not to do that, because there's a couple of moments in there. There was some background noise, and I apologize. I'm trying to work on all those, get out the kinks, kind of a thing. We're getting there. Right now, throughout this episode, you might hear me say a little ow. You might hear my chair here I'm moving around in. The reason for that is because I hurt my back. I got a bad back. I got a herniated or a slip disc in my lower back, and it causes pain every now and again. And anyway, my daughter was a little scared, and so she wanted me to lay down next to her bed until she fell asleep. So I laid down, not thinking, on this stupid hard floor. And when I got up, oh God, I was bent over and just a lot of pain. But don't worry, I had some whiskey, I had some weed. I think I'll be doing okay. All right, some other news that's going on. Well, obviously, hey, the most obvious thing, Halloween just happened. So hope everybody had a good Halloween. I know I'm eating candy. I'm sure you are too. And we're all going to be getting ready for that turkey as well. I know the Christmas stuff is already out in the stores. I always keep hearing these jokes that people are like, when are we just going to have like Hollow Thanks Esmas, day where we wake up early in the morning, open Christmas presents, then we eat a big turkey dinner, and then that night we get dressed in costumes and go trick-or-treating. Like, we just combine all of them together in one. I think that'd be hilarious, but I don't think it's ever going to happen. Other big news that's going on right now is there's a possibility of a job offer coming in, which I'm pretty excited about. Now, as I've stated from my last podcast, I am unemployed. With my back and my seizures, employers don't really... my resume goes into a different pile that's over the paper shredder. And so with that, I found a friend of mine came up with a recent opportunity to create content for a website. So keep your fingers crossed for me, man, because I really like the site and its cause, and I'll give you more information as things come along. But for right now, I'm just hoping, man. I'm supposed to hear something by the end of the week, so fingers crossed, man. Need the money. And then, of course, there is tonight's main topic, which is Bill Watterson. If you don't know who Bill Watterson is, you can go ahead and just Google his name right now, and you can find him. You can go ahead and take a look at his Wikipedia page, because most of my information is pretty much coming from there. Because for those of you that don't know, Bill Watterson is a bit of a recluse. People often call him Bigfoot for a reason. So, in order for you to understand the whole depth of tonight's episode, I'm going to kind of get into it here with you. I'll give you a little bit of background here on everything, but let me just give you a quick recap. Bill Watterson created a comic strip called Calvin and Hobbes. Now, for those of you youngsters out there that might be listening, a long time ago, back in the 80s and 90s, folks got their information from something called newspapers. And these newspapers were delivered every morning by a person who didn't have very good social skills, typically at night around 3 a.m. in the morning. And you'd get the paper, and it'd have all kinds of news stories, local news, sports, weather, all kinds of things. And in the back of this newspaper, you would find the funnies. And the funnies were these little comic strips by different artists and different writers. And they were just funny little jokes in the back next to the horoscopes. So, anyway, comic strips have a funny history, but anyway, during this time period, some of the more popular comic strips were, of course, Garfield, the cat. You had Peanuts with Snoopy and Charlie Brown. And then what was another popular one? Bloom County, which later became Outland, was a popular strip. Mother Goose and Grimm, Family Circus, for better or worse. Kathy, for those who like that. There's that other one. What is it? I don't, you know, if I don't like it, I don't even know why I would even mention it, so I'm not going to. But there was one particular comic strip in all of these strips that stuck out, and it was called Calvin and Hobbes. And Calvin and Hobbes was about a little boy named Calvin who had a stuffed tiger named Hobbes who would sort of come to life with his imagination, and they'd go on these adventures. They'd ride a wagon around, and Calvin's imagination, they would be like on Mars, or they'd be traveling, and there was all kinds of things. It was just this really, really great comic strip. It was very imaginative, and the artist Bill Watterson, who started out just, trying to kind of get it as best he could, ended up drawing these really fantastic comic strips, especially the dinosaurs, very detailed. Just grew some really great stuff. Some of the storylines were really great, and the strip is just awesome. So it's taken off, and it's being recognized by the artistic community and other comic veterans, and it's even attracting the likes of folks like Steven Spielberg wanting to do a movie, cartoon movie adaptation of it. So there's all this big stuff. So the strip goes from 1985 to 1995, and then in 1995, in December, right around Christmas, the author Bill Watterson, the creator of the strip, retired and quit drawing it. Now, this thing's been back and forth, okay? And the reason I'm bringing it up now is just because I want to talk about it, and then I literally just want it to die. I would really, really like it if Bill Watterson and the whole Calvin and Hobbes thing just kind of was laid to rest. Because, this strip had such an impact on a generation of kids that here I am 20 years later talking about it. That's how good this strip was. That's how much of an impact it had. And the fact that he retired at the height of its popularity had everyone just in shock, kind of scratching their heads. Me, I didn't understand. I was a kid when it happened. But now knowing the history, which I'm going to get into now, about why it is and what's happened. So first let's talk about Bill Watterson. He was born on July 5th, 1958, not too far away from myself, in Washington, D.C. He was inspired, of course, by Charles Schultz Peanuts, Charlie Brown, like all of us are. He worked for an advertiser in the early 80s, and then he created Calvin and Hobbes, which was first published on November 18th, 1985. Now, as the strip came along and, of course, gained up in popularity, what was natural for most strips was merchandising, which I'm sure everyone saw, which at that time was really big, was Garfield. You had Garfield with the, stuck to the back windows. You had Garfield calendars, I Hate Mondays. You had Garfield cartoons, and you had just Garfield everywhere. And along with, of course, Snoopy and Charlie Brown and other comic strip characters. So naturally, Calvin and Hobbes everyone thought that it was going to be the same thing, because even Bloom County, like I mentioned before, Opus and Bill the Cat dolls are available. For those of you that don't know, once again, just Google it. You'll find it, okay? Bloom County, okay? Comic strip, Bloom County, all right? Anyway, he didn't want to merchandise. He said it devalued his characters and their personalities. It kind of cheapened the whole overall thing. And this is where things kind of start getting a little crazy for a lot of fans. Because, you see, it was unprecedented for him to just retire. Usually, people who did comic strips, they did them forever. Charles Schultz had been doing Peanuts for friggin' generations. When you look at the dates, when some of those Charlie Brown cartoon specials, like the Christmas special and everything, were made, they're made for before I was born, before most of us, probably, a lot of us were born. And so everyone would just kind of thought that Calvin and Hobbes was going to take that same way, but Bill Watterson stopped. And to find out why, sorry, I hit the mic again. I hit it again. I'm moving it right now. I'm sure you're hearing all kinds of crazy things. I'm sorry. Let me stop. Okay, there we go. All right, continuing on. So it was really unthought of for him to just sort of quit. And he had a contract with Universal Press. and he fought with them over the rights to avoid merchandising, and it actually it caused kind of a bit of a rift. But Bill Watterson won. He was exhausted after the whole ordeal, and as such, he moved back to Ohio, I think, somewhere. Doesn't give interviews, doesn't do autographs, doesn't make public appearances, and no one's really heard about him. He just kind of disappeared. And so everyone was it was kind of like, let me just kind of give my personal reaction, because I loved Calvin and Hobbes as a kid. I was a kid with a big imagination. I understood what it was like to kind of be a loner, to be bullied, to not really understand girls. And so many of my friends and so many other kids identified with Calvin, and we loved him, and we wanted the Calvin and Hobbes toys and dolls and movies. We wanted that stuff. Fuck Garfield. We wanted Calvin and Hobbes. But he just took this stance, and it was just kind of, what the hell? Okay, all right, we get your point, I understand. And respectively, if Bill Watterson ever hears this, I'm probably going to tell you to fuck yourself a couple of times, but I mean it in the utmost respect of go fuck yourself. Because he has good points. I mean, it is his art. He wants it to be as a strip. He doesn't want it to be something else. We're not, making cartoons out of, we're not doing a whole cartoon movie about, the Mona Lisa and such. And so he wants to keep it in this certain medium, and he wants comic strips to have more respect. And comic strips have been seen as cheap, and he's trying to almost make it like literature. And I feel like that's what he's doing, like an evil genius. He brings up this comic strip, gets it at the height of its popularity, stops it, retires, kills it, basically just kills the whole friggin' thing, and makes everyone just want more, and then sneaks off away. And then the only time that those strips are ever republished or put out in any way, they're put together in a collection in these like hardbound fine literature books. I feel like that what Bill Watterson is trying to do is he's trying to make comic strips into literature, and he may be succeeding. At the same time, fuck you, you piece of shit, because I wanted to see the goddamn Calvin and Hobbes cartoon, and you can actually see some it's out there on the internet. You could probably see a few clips of it, but I wanted to see it, and I just got to say that this was my reaction. Okay, this was my reaction when I first heard that Calvin and Hobbes was now being stopped. I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Why? What happened? Why? What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? I mean, it was like someone killed my childhood friend. It's like I went to my best friend's house, and his parents opened the door and said, oh, no, sorry, little Tommy's not here. We killed him. Yeah, we just kind of got tired of doing, we got tired of dealing with him. He wasn't really that much, funny anymore. So we killed him. That's what we did. That's what it feels like Bill Watterson fucking did. Like, he just killed him, and it's like, fuck you, Bill. Fuck you, you piece of shit. What the fuck? And I've been going through, and he's actually done sub-interviews, even though he says, oh, he doesn't do interviews, but somehow this motherfucker has been saying shit, and it's been getting out there. So let me, I'm just trying to understand, because it just kind of physically hurts when something that you love so much is just kind of stopped. Now, of course it's still there, you still have the books, you can read them over and over and over again, but to know that it's not going to go the same route as all these other ones, and so many people feel that it should, that it deserves it. Because, I mean, you can't get more capable hands than Steven fucking Spielberg, Bill. What the fuck, man? I mean, Jesus Christ. Really? Really? You're gonna turn him down? Because you're afraid, because you don't know, because you want this moral stance? Alright, I understand, I get it, but what the fuck? What the fuck? And he made some comments like, it's always better to leave the party early. Well, you know what, Bill? We didn't want you to leave the party. We didn't want you to go. We wanted you to stick around. Even if you weren't going to do Calvin and Hobbes, maybe you could pass it to another person. Maybe you could, let Spielberg make the friggin' movie. Or maybe you could just hang out and maybe, toss a strip or maybe do a commentary here and there. Which is really what's happened, because Bill Watterson did do a couple of strips for a comic strip called Pearls Before Swine. If you haven't read it, please check it out. It's hilarious. Really good stuff, so I would really recommend that out. And this was the other thing that really sucked with Bill Watterson retiring, is that very same year, Gary Larson, the creator of The Far Side, he retired that January. just before after doing The Far Side for 15 years. So the fact that Bill, cut out after 10, it's like, fuck you, man. But what I have here today is, I'm going to read you something here today. And this is Watterson's letter. This was published on November 9th, 1995, when Bill Watterson announced that he would be stopping Calvin and Hobbes. So I'm going to read this here to you now. Dear reader, I will be stopping Calvin and Hobbes at the end of the year. This was not a recent or an easy decision, and I leave with some sadness. My interests have shifted, however, and I believe I've done what I can do within the constraints of daily deadlines and small panels. I am eager to work at a more thoughtful pace with fewer artistic compromises. I have not yet decided on future projects, but my relationship with Universal Press Syndicate will continue. That so many newspapers would carry Calvin and Hobbes is an honor I'll long be proud of, and I've greatly appreciated your support and indulgence over the last decade. Drawing this comic strip has been a privilege and a pleasure, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity. Sincerely, Bill Watterson. The last strip of Calvin and Hobbes was published on December 31st, 1995. Then, in early 2010, Watterson was interviewed by The Plain Dealer on the 15th anniversary of the end of Calvin and Hobbes, and explaining his decision to discontinue the strip, he said, "This isn't as hard to understand as people try to make it. By the end of 10 years, I'd said pretty much everything I'd come there to say. It's always better to leave the party early. If I had rolled along with the strip's popularity and repeated myself for another 5, 10, or 20 years, the people now grieving for Calvin and Hobbes would be wishing me dead or cursing newspapers for running tedious, ancient strips like mine instead of acquiring fresher, livelier talent, and I'd be agreeing with them. I think some of the reason Calvin and Hobbes still finds an audience today is because I chose not to run the wheels off it. I've never regretted stopping when I did." Well, I fucking regret it, you cocksucker. I fucking regret it, you piece of shit. What the fuck? Leave the party? Like I said, man, fuck you. Just stick around, man. And this whole, it's going to be like this terrible, horrible strip. Look, man, to say that you can't don't get me wrong. I understand. It's difficult to come up with a joke every single day, 7 days a week by 11 a.m., okay? I can understand the complications with the deadlines. I get that. I understand. Because, the guy did over 3,000 strips a year, okay? Over 35,000 strips altogether. It's insane. But they were still running Peanuts. Charles Schulz kept doing Peanuts. Even when the jokes weren't all that great, he was still doing it. And I'm not, telling you to run the wheels off it, but I have so much respect for Charles Schulz for that he kept doing it. He was 80, 90-something years old, and he was still doing it. And then when he passed, they just ran the whole series all the way over again, back from the beginning, to where you saw Charlie Brown when he first originally was drawing him, but when his head wasn't so perfectly round. I don't know, man. What I've seen with comedians is comedians can always find a way to make anything funny. They can take anything and turn it into some kind of a joke, or find a joke, or find humor somewhere in there. But this is the last quote that I've seen online from Bill Watterson. In October 2013, the magazine Mental Floss published an interview with Watterson, only the second since the strip ended. Watterson again confirmed that he would not be revisiting Calvin and Hobbes, and that he was satisfied with his decision. Watterson also gave his opinion on the changes in the comic book industry and where it would be headed in the future. And Bill Watterson stated, and I quote, "Personally, I like paper and ink better than glowing pixels, but to each his own. Obviously, the role of comics is changing very fast. On the one hand, I don't think comics have ever been more widely accepted or taken as seriously as they are now. On the other hand, the mass media is disintegrating them, and audiences are atomizing. I suspect comics will have less widespread cultural impact and make a lot less money. I'm old enough to find all this unsettling, but the world moves on. All the new media will inevitably change the look, function, and maybe even the purpose of comics, but comics are vibrant and versatile. So I think they'll continue to find relevance one way or another, but they definitely won't be the same as what I grew up with." You got that right, Bill. It definitely has changed because we don't have the newspaper anymore. It's all online. And that's where you got to go now, and that's where the comic strips are, and that's where mine is. Right now I got 2 strips. I got Unorganized Chaos, which is basically my tribute to Gary Larson's The Far Side, and then I have another strip I got started called Teddy and Teddy, which is basically my salute to Calvin and Hobbes. I figure if they've done their piece and they're gone, I'm going to do it, and if it gets picked up, and hopefully things start working out with this job, and they help pick it up, then I'm going to keep doing it as long as people are reading it. Because sometimes, to me, that's just the way I've always seen it go. Because, I mean, look at all the comics. You know, I'm into comic books, and that's what I do, and that's what I love. And I always see, I mean, how many Spider-Man issues are there collectively? I mean, think about it. It's huge. Endless storylines, endless possibilities, endless characters. And I feel like there's that same way here. So anyway, after all that's said and done, what I'd like to finally put down here is here lies Calvin and Hobbes, where they should be resting in peace at your local library, where you can pick them up for free and read them whenever you want, and hopefully maybe one day show them to your kids. But soon, and I believe at one point, they'll fade. Just like so many others did. Thank you, Bill Watterson. Thank you for making Calvin and Hobbes. It's an awesome fucking strip. I still read it. But fuck you for not letting Spielberg make the goddamn movie. What the fuck?
And if you stay, I will wait for you. 7 years is a long time. And if you stay, I will wait for you.
getting strange here. Zombies are drinking beer. People are living in fear. Can't seem to see too clear. And this boat would go a little more with the flow if we all just steer together. If we all just steer together. If we all just steer together. The text man is asking for more, but people are still feeling poor. Gotta live in a tent, 'cause we can't pay the rent. Oh, what are we fighting for? Oh, what are we fighting for? Oh, what are we fighting for? And this boat would go a little more with the flow if we all just steer together. If we all just steer together. If we all just steer together. It's more a matter of the heart. Shouldn't look at what tears us apart. Don't wanna be left in the dark. We all just want a fair start. We all just want a fair start. All we want is a fair start. And this boat would go a little more with the flow if we all just steer together. If we all just steer together. If we all just steer together. We will rise and we will fall, but in the end, through it all, together, we can't stand tall. This boat would go a little more with the flow if we all just steer together. If we all just steer together. If we all just steer together. I know things don't make sense. There's no reason to give in. We gotta stay strong if we're gonna get along. Oh, you know we're all better than this. Oh, you know we're all better than this. You know damn well you're better than this. And this boat would go a little more with the flow if we all just steer together. If we all just steer together. If we all just steer together. And this boat would go a little more with the flow if we all just steer together. If we all just steer together. Or if we all just steer together.